All right, joining me now here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is Roberto Gonzales. Roberto is an assistant professor at Harvard University. He is the author of the new book, Lives in Limbo, Undocumented and Coming of Age in America. You can find Roberto on Twitter at RGGonzales1. Roberto, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt.
All right, so Roberto, one of the things that is unique about your book is that it uses data from a study that you did on some 150 undocumented youth in Los Angeles over a period of 12 years, which is a really long time to be following this. Begin by telling us, how did that study actually come about?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I ended up spending a long time following this very large group. I think the motivation for this study was, I spent, before graduate school, I spent 10 years in Chicago as a youth worker, as a youth organizer. I lived and worked in the same Chicago neighborhood. And so working with kids and families, many of our kids in our community, I started noticing over the years that at around 14, 15 years old, so we noticed that many of the youth in our community were hitting dead ends because of their status. As their friends were moving forward, getting after-school jobs, getting driver's licenses, thinking about college, getting financial aid for college, they had no choice but to sit on the side and to watch. Fast forward a few years, and I'm in a graduate program in Southern California, and I'm spending time in communities, and I'm meeting a lot of young people with very similar stories. Had come to the U.S. at 6 months old, 2 years old, 5 years old, had grown up side by side with American-born peers and friends, had grown up in their schools to daily pledges of allegiance to the flag, to Barney and the Power Rangers, to trips to Disneyland and to Los Angeles Dodger games, just like their peers. But again, at this critical turning point, these young people were finding that they were unable to move forward because of their status. And that became what, and so that discovery led to what became this long-term inquiry around the broader question of what happens to these undocumented children as they make critical transitions through adolescence and young adulthood.
One of the terms you use in the book is you say that so many of these young immigrants transition to illegality over time. Describe what you mean by that.
Yeah, so that's a good question. This transition to illegality is really about the contradictory spaces that these young people move through. So because of a Supreme Court ruling in Plyler versus Doe in 1982, undocumented children have the right to attend K through 12 schools. And so as a result, these young people are integrated into a very powerful Americanizing institution from day one. This is very different from their parents who were absorbed into low-wage jobs and very quickly learn how to survive as undocumented immigrants. But our laws treat children and adults differently and don't account for the continuity of children becoming adults. So whereas undocumented children have access to K through 12 schools, they can't legally work, they can't drive in most states, they can't vote, they're excluded from financial aid for college, and they can be deported at any time. So as childhood really, childhood is legality is not a prerequisite for childhood, but participating in adulthood, moving through importantly defining adult rites of passage, working, driving, and all these other things that I mentioned, as these young people move into this less protected space where legality is central to their participation, they transition to illegality.